Hello, I'm Matt,
I'm Chris.
and we are the NOLAnerds, where we talk about nerdy stuff. Today, in particular, gaming related. Uh, not particularly a review or anything, but take another stab at making a list of sorts because everyone loves lists. And today we thought, now that both systems have their major exclusive game coming out, and this is between the PS4 and the Xbox One. People can argue about the Wii U being lumped in with those two, but it's kind of its own separate beast.
It would need a game.
Smash Bros.
It would need
Mario
another game.
Kart,
Another game.
X,
One more?
Donkey Kong,
One more?
Hyrule Warriors,
One more.
Legend of Zelda.
No, one with an actual date.
Oh yeah, well, the thing is, for if you have the Wii U as your second system, you're happy with Mario Kart and Smash Bros.
Sure.
I guess. Bayonetta 2.
When's that coming out?
This year.
Okay.
So, what? Hello Kitty kart racers released this week. Anyway, this is a list for the Xbox One and the PS4. Now that the PS4's had Infamous released and the Xbox One had Titanfall come out, people are wondering what's ahead. So we are looking at our top 5 anticipated next-gen AAA games. Let's focus on that. So we're not going to talk about downloadable indie games like, say, Child of Light or The Witness or Transistor or any of those. We're focused on retail release, quote-unquote AAA games, because as much as the PlayStation 4 has benefited from having a wealth of indie games, AAA games are the ones people talk about. They're the ones that get the hype. They're the ones that push the sales. So let's go. We got I believe we said that we each have 3 that are shared.
Mm-hmm.
So let's knock those out, and then we'll swap back and forth for our other individual options.
That sounds like a plan.
First up, let's talk. For me, probably one of the best games coming out, and what I think is poised to be bigger than, say, Titanfall in terms of the games people are going to be playing for a long time to come. Destiny. Bungie's Destiny.
Yeah, it's shaping up to be this huge kind of thing, and I mean it looks impressive based on everything we've seen so far, all the trailers and all the press conference reviews. So
and the gameplay reveals and everything, but what sells it to me over a game like Titanfall is the cooperative nature, where it's not strictly competitive. It's kind of like it's co-op meets competitive gameplay with the drop-in, drop-out nature. You could do the whole game by yourself, but why would you? It's kind of like I want to say almost Borderlands-ish, where you could play the game solo, but you're really missing out on what the game's about if you're not playing with a team, with friends. It's just this is the game that I feel is going to have the most legs. And it's also the one that we need to learn the most about.
yes.
They've been very keeping it. I mean, it's Bungie. They keep it tight to the chest until it's time to reveal it.
We don't have a lot of time. It's like 5 or 6 months before release.
Comes out in September, so it's coming up. And the thing that I'm most interested in is the much vaunted PlayStation 4 exclusive content, and why. I mean, Destiny, for the first time, a Bungie game has showed up at every Sony PlayStation 4 conference, at the reveal, at their Gamescom, at their E3. So it's interesting, and I want to know why. They keep teasing it, and people are not going to be swayed until they find out what it is. Because if it ends up being like, oh, here's a map pack, no, maybe even a map pack, but like here's a couple weapon skins and stuff like that, or some character skins and a background.
It looks way bigger than that.
Yeah, otherwise, why would they even care?
Yeah,
but
seriously.
So Destiny, that's number 1. Which one would you like to talk about next, sir?
What's the next one on our list that we both have?
Division.
Yeah, let's talk about the Division.
The Division.
A game we know very little about.
It is the Watch Dogs of 2013.
Yes.
Which means
Had a great
that
trailer.
Ubisoft kind of blew everyone away with this reveal no one really expected. The year before that was Watch Dogs. Then the year after was The Division, a next-gen, one of the few confirmed next-gen only games that was revealed last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an RPG system, not unlike I want to say like a third-person co-op Fallout game almost, where you play in this dilapidated city. We don't know the cause. We know it's a virus, but we don't know any of the circumstances.
Well, they had a whole story crawl at the beginning, so but it kind of blew everyone away because it is a squad-based shooter with RPG elements, with also
Mass Effect-ish.
With also second screen components, which also brings in other players and all this other stuff. So
then the reveal at the end that, like Destiny, it is a squad-based game, so it has the co-op nature. But then they were doing PvP with another team's squad. Yeah. So there's PvP elements as well. So that's super interesting.
There's not a lot beyond that first trailer.
But man, it was enough to get me hyped.
It's enough, I think, until we find out some horrible thing about it.
Yeah, until they come out of nowhere and just drop the ball. But as it stands, The Division is one of the games I'm chomping at the bit to play. Uh-huh. And that's a nice segue to another game, which is similar, where we really don't know much outside of a couple trailers that they've shown. Except with this one, we have the precedent of the games that came before it, yes. The Witcher 3. Which is poised to be one of the biggest next-gen RPGs around, and I cannot wait for this game.
The Witcher, I think, is going to be the most next-gen game that's going to come out, because the studio that's produced The Witcher has always pushed the envelope graphically and with content. So
for a team as small as they are, they really have done a good job.
They do a lot. So this is going to be the game that's really going to push the next gen, because the next gen is kind of in the middle ground where it's half in, half out. So.
And this is the first one, I believe, that is coming out with a release date parity with the PC, to my knowledge. It's coming out on next gen and PC at the same time, which is huge. The easiest game to draw a comparison to The Witcher is Dragon Age 3. But unfortunately for Dragon Age, Dragon Age needs to be great because it's coming off of a mediocre follow-up. But The Witcher is coming off of a strong game, and then you're throwing in next gen. They said that each of the 5 areas is larger than Skyrim as a whole. The game is larger than 5 Skyrims, which is absurd.
It's pretty big, but at a certain point, you got to ask yourself why. I mean, because Skyrim is huge and it's expansive, but there's a lot of empty space in Skyrim.
And I think,
it's artificially enlarged.
Well, I agree. Like, it's just large for the sake of being large. Yeah. But I have faith that there's a reason that it's that large.
Sure. I would not be surprised.
Chock full of content is what I'm hoping for.
I'm hoping, but I just hope it doesn't turn into, hey, we've got the biggest map. Here's 1,000 kilometers of desert.
Right. I will have fun trekking. As long as I'm excited because the battle system's always so good in a Witcher game, and that is why I always prefer it to Skyrim, because I found the combat. That's just me. I know I'm in the minority. Skyrim combat clunky.
Yeah,
but Witcher 3 was my most anticipated game for a long time. Then it got delayed and it made me sad. But honestly, it's just going to make it better. So
probably.
Why don't you hit us up with your first that's not me, with me.
Okay. Let me pull up the list real quick.
Man, you should know by now, son.
Dying Light. Which I don't normally go for horror games, but I loved Dead Island a lot. And I actually prefer Dead Island as a single-player experience. Well, it's Dead Island with parkour elements, basically. And I prefer Dead Island as a single-player experience because, it was very scary being by yourself on an island of unending zombies. And now you're taking that element, you're throwing in parkour, and then you're throwing that they go fucking nuts at night, and it's going to be a lot of running and a lot of planning everything out.
And a lot, so here's some news that you might not know that I think might make you happier, is that they've delayed Dying Light to make it a little better, and they've reportedly canceled the previous gen versions. And the delay is to focus on making the next-gen version worthy of being on the next-gen instead of just essentially being a port.
That's nice.
Like a cross-gen game. It's now being retooled to focus next-gen only.
Yeah.
So
that's nice.
Dying Light.
I'm very hyped for it. I mean, it's going to be one of those things I'm going to tweak around with for a bit.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it goes from there. But initially, hyped.
Okay. Well, my next one is what we've talked about ad nauseum for a while. It's cropped up on many of our most anticipated lists in our actual monthly video game shows. It's Watch Dogs, and this one, it's finally coming out. And there was a long, 6-month gap. Maybe not 6 months, because we're not 6 months past the delay, but 4 months of silence.
Yeah.
Where from the November or the October delay with no release date to when they made the announcement and the release date, now we're being hit again with the hype. So it's building back up again for me. It's looking great. Exclusive content on my platform of choice with the PS4 right now. The news of the asynchronous multiplayer and kind of Dark Souls style invading someone else's game and the cat and mouse with that. I'm just really excited for the whole concept, and I've been excited since the reveal, and it feels surreal that it's finally coming out.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I know you didn't put it on your list because you feel like it's been too long.
We have discussed it ad nauseum. Yeah. I mean, this was in our podcast, our video game podcast. It was the game to look for
so long,
like a year,
and it was the launch game we were most anticipating.
There's
and you know what?
You can't just talk about it anymore. We've covered every aspect.
But much like games like South Park and The Witcher and any Nintendo game of note, is just the delays are for a reason. Yes. Unless it's Duke Nukem or a game of that sort, the delays are there.
Delays are acceptable until they reach a ridiculous point.
Exactly. And you know what? To be fair, the delay wasn't that ridiculous.
It was 6 months.
Yeah.
That's I expect a 6 months. I took the plus or minus 6 months for every release.
Yeah, every major release. So, Watch Dogs still looking great. What is your final one, sir?
Final Fantasy 15.
Ah.
Because RPGs, Japanese RPGs, have been relegated to this niche thing when they used to be king. And
they've really been a handheld genre lately.
Yeah. It's very telling. The best Japanese RPG of several years is Bravely Default. So,
especially from Square Enix. There's been many good ones from other companies, but for the most part, they've all been handheld. But
even the really good ones from other companies have never been like yo, you need to play
but back
Infinite on Discovery. It's always like Infinite on Discovery.
Right.
Or Tales of Vesperia, even, which was, probably the best console RPG of several years, was still just...
Or even Lost Odyssey, most people didn't talk about.
But Lost Odyssey's so old now. It's been almost a decade.
The whole previous generation was not kind to Japanese RPGs.
Really
Compare that to the golden age
of the PS2 and the PS1.
And even the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Those were the days where people were like, Chrono Trigger? Have you played Chrono Trigger? Final Fantasy VII. Have you played Final Fantasy VII?
Yeah.
Final Fantasy was a name that meant something. And Final Fantasy 15 is looking to bring that name back.
It has to, especially after the clusterfuck of the Lightning trilogy.
Oh.
The Lightning... And, we're not discussing the Lightning trilogy is terrible. Yeah. All I'm going to say is Lightning Returns is already $40 on Amazon.
Here's the thing. People love it. People hate it. People are mediocre at it. But the thing is, before Final Fantasy 13, there wasn't such a division. Final Fantasy wasn't a joke. And the problem with this generation was it was the huge delays. The joke that was Final Fantasy 13 Versus, which thankfully is now 15.
Yeah.
The abomination of the first launch of Final Fantasy 14. But it looks like Square's righting the ship now, because 14 has been relaunched and is now one of the more successful MMOs in recent memory, and it's doing very strongly. And it's had one of the most successful console MMO launches, I believe, around. And now 15 is looking great.
15 has to be a success.
It has to.
Because if it's not, I don't know what happens to Square.
That's the thing. 15 is a barometer where, much like Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 6 and 4 and the other launches, its success is going to create a wave of copycats, which is going to really bring back the RPG genre on consoles.
Or,
if it flops, it's going to again be relegated to iOS, handhelds, and indie games. Our RPGs are going to be handled by the indie developers.
Yeah, it has to be a success, and they're betting a lot of chips. I'm betting a lot of chips on it because Japanese RPGs are great, and
when they're given
when they're given care, and I have good stories and good combat. They're great. They're one of the best gaming genres out there. So,
Final Fantasy 15.
Make it work.
And finally, for me, my last one is Batman Arkham Knight, which, out of all the games we've talked about, even compared to Final Fantasy 15, we've seen the least of.
Yeah, we've only seen a trailer.
and a pre-rendered trailer at that, and a couple screenshots from Game Informer.
Especially considering that it's the one that the closest release date that we have the least information.
It's
about.
true
Because we have the Division, but the Division's not coming out till
or sometime early next
whenever.
year. I mean, Destiny's September,
yeah.
But we've known that for a while.
Yeah.
But Batman, the reason it's on my list is, I mean, while Origins was good, City was great, Asylum was great, and what people need to remember is that the reason Origins came out was as a stopgap so that the actual team in Rocksteady could be working on this and get that extra year in. So you don't even consider Origins in this space. This is the true sequel to City. This is what they've been working on. It's their first next-gen. It's next-gen only, which means it's going to be optimized for these systems. It's not going to be watered down. I can only imagine the graphics are going to be amazing. They've created this new character, this new villain, the Arkham Knight, which people may scoff at, but not every great character comes from the comics. I mean, look at Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Look at Firestar. I mean, more Harley Quinn than Firestar for Marvel, but I mean, the point is, you can create great characters outside the medium, and if they're good enough, they will transition into the medium. And for what I've read, Arkham Knight seems like an awesome antagonist. I like the idea of being able to drive around in the car, the Batmobile. And there's so much they haven't told us that people are running around like, is there going to be co-op? Will you be able to play as a Robin? Will you be able? I mean, that was something I always hoped for in City, was that they'll allow some kind of like co-op, and online and everything has been pushed. Every game we've talked about today, minus 15 because we're not sure yet, has had a focus on multiplayer, and almost every game that we've had come out, maybe not competitive, but a cooperative stance. I mean, Watch Dogs has it. Witcher 3 doesn't, but that we know of. But Destiny definitely has it, and The Division definitely has it, and other games that we haven't talked about in this list are definitely strong in it. So that's my hope. But I just know that when I play Arkham Knight, I'm going to be satisfied.
Yeah.
Rocksteady right now is batting 1,000. They haven't made a bad game, and until they do, they have my trust.
Yeah. I thought about putting this on my list. I didn't ultimately because at the end of the day, Arkham games are Arkham games. They have a formula. They're the perfect superhero games. So
vigilante games.
Yeah, they're the perfect games for Batman.
Right.
So there's not really a ton they can screw up. So I'm not.
And if Origin's biggest complaint was that it was too similar to the great game.
Look. Asylum is great. City is excellent. Origins is good.
Yeah.
If Origins had come out before City, we would be having a completely different discussion.
Yeah, Origins would be the fantastic one, and City would be the copycat.
Yeah, because there's such a little difference.
Yeah. But Arkham Knight, good times.
Yeah, it should be.
Now, I just want to rattle off some honorable mentions, games that we're also excited about but haven't quite made the cut. One, because we know even less about this than the other one, is Uncharted 4.
Which we know.
We have a special guest star by Nathan Drake. I'm just going to let him sit here and... What's up? Just stare at you. Actually, I'm going to have him stare at you first.
No, turn him the other way.
Turn him the other way? Alright. He's shooting you. No! His arm! Why? You monster. Alright, anyway.
I disarmed him!
Uncharted 4.
Which we know nothing.
I'm actually really looking forward to The Order. But for a game that's also really close, it has a September release. We also don't know very much about it.
I don't know anything about The Order. And I honestly... I don't... I have yet to be wowed by anything The Order's thrown out. None of their trailers, nothing.
So that's one where I feel E3 will be a good show.
Fucking better.
Evolve, I think, is going to be really good. Evolve, the people at PAX finally got a chance to play it, and Evolve was just always on their high list. They said the multiplayer of Evolve was fantastic. So, you all right?
I'm trying to make
sure
sure
I went back.
No, whatever. Right. Yeah, Evolve sounds pretty fantastic. It could be the new Left 4 Dead. So,
well, considering who's making it, I think that's a fair assumption.
Sure.
I don't know. Are there any other games that we talked about that you're like, oh, maybe?
No, Arkham Knight was the only one that was the major wild card as far as I was concerned.
Right.
But
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of games coming out. People like to throw out the there's no games on the systems coming out, but there really are. And if we were talking about indies, and we might make a video of upcoming indie games, but you never know, the list gets even bigger.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Word.
That's our list of the top 5 upcoming next-gen AAA games that we're hyped for. What? Yeah, I don't know. I'm Matt.
I'm Chris.
And we're the NOLAnerds, and we never have a good way to end these segments. They always just kind of meander until they get annoying.
Bang, bang.
Bang, bang.